what's happening to you is horrible, but it's precisely this kind of horrible, and here's what this kind of horrible is like, and here's what you can do about it, and here's a bunch of other people who are also suffering from it, and they've recovered. And so with this kind of horrible, there's all these other things that you won't have to worry about. And that's really, that can be really helpful for people. No emotion is always destructive. Any emotion taken to an extreme can be destructive. People who are manic are in some sense possessed by a radical excess of positive emotion, and they get incredibly impulsive. And it's terribly destructive. I mean, there's almost no form of insanity that's more destructive than mania. People will go out and spend all their money, all their family's money, and, well, and engage in all sorts of hyper-optimistic interactions with the world. It will result in their complete ruin. And shame is like if you do something stupid and destructive to yourself, or to yourself and the broader social community, you should feel shame, and you should pay attention to it, and you should learn from it. How should you decide between being hard on yourself and giving yourself a break? That's a very good question. You shouldn't work so hard that you can't continue to work that hard. What you have to learn is, how can you maximize your productivity? And often that means learning actually how much work you can do, and how much leisure you need, and how much you need to involve yourself in activities that are outside of work. I would say for young people, the way that you figure that out is that you pick something difficult to do and you work yourself half to death doing it, so that you can figure out where your actual limits are, like your limits of psychological and physiological endurance. And once you've exceeded your limits, to pull back to the point where that becomes sustainable. Sometimes, I think, to do the right thing, you're required to break a law and be punished for it. I think you can find what compels you and what might enable you to live in a high-quality manner despite the suffering that's associated with life. I think you can discover that, and I think part of the way you discover that is by watching yourself and learning when it is that you're meaningfully engaged. You have to notice that. It's something that happens to you in some sense rather than something that you do. You have to notice when you're meaningfully engaged. And then you have to work to expand the amount of time that you spend in that state. But I would also say that there are moral requirements that go along with that too, because you might say, well, what if you happen to be the sort of person, for example, who finds torturing small animals meaningfully engaging? It seems like that's the sort of meaningful engagement that you probably don't want to expand. So I would say that if you're going to set up your life so that you maximize your meaningful engagement, there's a number of other things that you have to do at the same time. And one of those is that you have to get very clear about who you are and what you're doing. And so, although this would be grounds for a much longer discussion, I think that one of the things that you have to do if you're going to attempt to maximize meaningful engagement is that you also have to do such things as endeavor to stop deceiving yourself and other people in every way you possibly can. And part of the reason for that is that if you engage in deception of any sort, you pathologize the structure, well, first the structure of your being, but you could say you pathologize the structure of your nervous system, and then you can't trust its reports. So if you're going to rely on your nervous system's reports of meaningful engagement to guide your future activities, you better do everything you can to make sure that you're not filling that nervous system with the kind of garbage that's going to make it malfunction and give you false reports. So I think that moving towards meaningful engagement has to be associated with making truth your highest value, because otherwise you can't trust yourself as your own guide.